The Hero, Two Doors Down by Sharon Robinson, Chapter 8. On Sunday, December 19th, we were walloped by a snowstorm that lasted 20 hours, leaving behind almost 20 inches of snow and record cold temperatures. I watched the whole thing from the windows of our house, counting the hours before Senna and I could go sledding. While I was dreaming of snowball fights and racing down the big hill at the park, my mother was making plans for our big Hanukkah gathering. This year, Hanukkah would begin on December 26th. The first night was a big deal. Our house would be filled with grandparents, uncles, aunts, and cousins. I loved everything about Hanukkah except getting dressed up for dinner and being beaten in the dreidel game by my older cousins. Mom would make potato pancakes, applesauce, and sugary donuts first thing in the morning, set out the bowl of wooden dreidels and foil-wrapped chocolate Hanukkah gelt, and place the menorah and candles on the dining room table just before company arrived. Naturally, the thought of getting 8 gifts made me giddy. Mom pretty much knew what I wanted, but I made a list and gave it to her when I came down for breakfast. Can I go sledding today? I asked as soon as I walked into the kitchen. Please eat your breakfast, and then we'll discuss plans for the day, my mother said. Okay, I replied. How about scrambled eggs with your bagel? No, thank you. My mother was standing next to the counter with a wet cloth in her right hand and our menorah in front of her. Did you sleep well, Mom asked. Yep, I replied, settling into my chair and slapping jelly on my bagel. Mom looked at me as though she had something important to say. Steve, you know that there is a war in Israel, Mom began. I nodded. The Israeli war had been dinner table conversation for months. I didn't really understand war, how they get started, who was right, who was wrong. Was the fight for freedom or land? Did children still go to school? Since I never experienced a war, it was strange to me. Maybe we could bring all the children in Israel to America so they'll be safe, I suggested. Mom dropped the cloth she'd been using to clean our menorah, walked around the kitchen counter to take a seat at the table. Steve, you're the kindest boy, she said. I can just imagine millions of Jewish and Arab children coming to America so they can go to school, be loved, and live in a safe place. Unfortunately, that's not possible, but we can help make a difference in their lives. Really? How? I asked, happy to know there was a solution. Your father and I have talked about this a lot, and we have a suggestion. Next Sunday, we'll celebrate the first night of Hanukkah. The family will come to our house and we'll begin our holiday. Your father and I would like to make the first night of Hanukkah have a special meaning beyond a family gathering and the exchange of gifts. We want it to be truly about the Jewish faith. You know how we talk about doing a mitzvah? Sure, I said. It's doing a good deed, like when we visit the home for old people and plant flowers in their garden. That's right, Steve. On Sunday, when your father lights the candle, he will say a special prayer asking for peace in Israel, and then tell our friends of our plan to send money to help both Arab and Jewish children in Israel, Mom said. But the children are so far away. How will we get the money to them? We will send the money to them through the United Nations organization called UNICEF. It helps children all around the world. Since the Arab-Israeli war began, UNICEF has been providing food and supplies to Palestinians who had to flee from their home, and to Israeli women and children who are caught in the middle of the war. We will ask your grandparents, aunts and uncles, and even you and your cousins to give us money to send to UNICEF. I only have $2, I said. Mom chuckled. We have another idea of how you and your cousins can contribute. You do? Yes. We want you to give up one of your Hanukkah gifts, Mom said. You're going to send toys to kids in Israel? I asked. No, they need food and blankets more than toys. Instead of buying you 8 gifts, we'll buy you 7 smaller gifts. The money that we save will be added to the money your father and I have put aside to send to Israel. Your aunts and uncles are asking your cousins to make the same small sacrifice. You and your cousins will be doing a mitzvah. I wrestled with Mom's words for a few minutes, put my bagel down, and sat back in my chair. It made sense. I was a little disappointed. Where do the children go to get away from the bombs? I asked. Sometimes they hide with their families in shelters dug around, but since bombs and gunfire can happen all day or night, they sometimes hide under their desks at school or in corners of the building. Truth is, there is no real hiding place. Kids are innocent victims of war. I've been trying to picture war, I said. Where would we go if Tilden Ave was hit by a bomb? War is very hard to imagine. I pray you'll never have to experience it, Mom said. We're safe here. Up until this very moment, I hadn't felt connected to the Arab-Israeli war. Now I was. Mom was right. Children were innocent victims. They didn't start wars. I felt sorry that they had to grow up afraid of death. Maybe doing a good deed will make some of the children feel less afraid. I get it, Mom. Mom lifted her right hand and settled it on top of mine. I knew you'd understand, Stephen. You have a heart of a healer. What does that mean? I asked. It means you care about people. That's a good way to be, Mom said, planting a kiss on my cheek. I got up from my chair, walked over to the counter where my list lay untouched. To do a good deed, I have to give something expensive up from my list. I picked it up and crossed out the Diesel Road Roller, a toy I'd seen advertised in the Brooklyn Eagle. I knew it was the most expensive gift. Thank you, Steve, Mom said as she smiled. I have one more request. What's that? I asked. We'd like to include a letter from you to the children along with the check. What would I say? Think about what you'd like to say if you had a friend who lived in Israel and was surrounded by war, Mom said, handing me a pad of paper. Write what's in your heart. To who? You could start your letter, Dear Friend, Mom suggested. I sat back down, tried to imagine the real sounds of gunfire and bombs going off around me. My hands trembled as I began to write. Dear Friend, my name is Stephen Satlow. I live in Brooklyn, New York, where there is no war. My family and I want to help, but we can't stop the bombing. We're sending you money so you can eat and blankets so you don't be cold. We will pray that peace will come soon and you can live a life where it is safe. You are all so brave. I hope we meet someday. Sincerely, Steve.